everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Power 365 show. Our guest is Group Program Manager in the Microsoft Dynamics platform team, Satish Thomas. Join me today as we chat about the Microsoft Customer Insights, how it works, and how it could help your business. If you have not taken a look at SalesSpark, my question is, why not? Sales engagement is how salespeople create a force multiplier on their time, prospects, and opportunity, leading to predictable revenue. If you want to boost your sales results in 2020, go to salespark.com or contact me directly. Full show notes for this episode can be found at nz365guide.com/170. Now let's get on with the show. Satish, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks for having me.
Mate, it's good to get you on here. I've been there's been a bit of holidays and whatnot got in the way, but we're finally here. And before we kind of get into the range of products that you're responsible for, that you lead in the Microsoft Business Applications team, can you tell us a bit about where life started for you in this wonderful world?
So I actually grew up in Botswana, which is in southern Africa. So if you're ever thinking of a vacation, Mark, you should definitely make Botswana your first stop.
Okay, good.
So I grew up in Botswana, came to the U.S. To study for college in Chicago, and then ended up at Microsoft as an intern. And then, as luck would have it, I was lucky enough to get a full-time offer, and have been at Microsoft ever since.
You know what? It blows me away. You mentioning there that you came in as an intern, which I didn't realize that. That's how you started. And I just find so many of Microsoft's super smart people, that have amazing minds and lead some incredible teams. I love it that they actually, started pretty much straight out of university as their first, major career step. And why do you think that's worked so well for Microsoft as a whole?
It's kind of interesting, actually, because when I was an intern, actually, I think very, very, very highly of our intern program. When I first was considering, jobs out of college, the usual suspects were there. But I was really blown away with the Microsoft intern program. It's 3 months. They don't put you on an intern project. You're basically building stuff that'll make it into a product that ships. So that intensity, that experience is something that you don't get in a lot of places. And actually, there was a very good perk back then, which I think was the last year they did it, was at the end of your internship, you get to attend a barbecue at Bill Gates' house.
Wow. Wow.
So that was, and I spent my 21st birthday at Bill Gates' house. So it's kind of like a cool story to say, hey, what'd you do for your 21st birthday? I'm like, what? I was hanging out at, no, but it's an amazing experience. Yeah. And you get to hear a lot about, his experiences. He takes a lot of questions. So I think that was the last year they did that, because he retired, he decided to go part-time after that. And even now, it's amazing opportunities and events, that they do for the intern program. So I'm definitely a big fan, and anywhere I go on college campus, I really, really encourage folks to apply for the program and get to feel and experience Microsoft, and then hopefully, they decide to come back.
Yeah. At a high level, kind of what was the structure of that intern program? Like you said, 3 months total, was it? Yeah,
so it's 3 months. And, believe it or not, I did my internship with Dynamics back then.
Wow.
So Satya was still in Dynamics back then.
Yeah.
He was our GM, I believe.
So is this early 2000s type thing, was it?
No, it was actually 2006.
Okay.
2006.
Yep.
So that was, so it's 3 months of the internship, where you basically work on some real product features that'll make it into the product. So you get to do the end-to-end, basically talk to customers, design the feature, test the feature, and finally, before you head out, you have a presentation with the leadership, and basically talk about everything you learned, and that's around the time you basically make the call of whether you want to come back, accept the offer to come back after college, and all that good stuff. So really, it's a very packed 3 months, and a lot of the folks that I met during my internship, both as interns and FTs, are still my friends, colleagues, and folks that I still keep in very close touch with.
Wow. And so does the intern program pretty much center around Redmond?
No, actually, it's global. So my internship was in Redmond, but I believe at every Microsoft office around the world, or at least the bigger offices, there is the intern program in some form, which is my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so when you're not working nowadays, what do you do in your spare time?
So I have a little one at home, a 1-year-old and a 7-year-old. So I spend a lot of time playing, playing games and keeping them entertained. But otherwise, I play poker. I really enjoy playing
Yeah.
poker and tournaments and all that good stuff. I don't get enough time to do it anymore, but whenever I get some time, that's what I do.
Fantastic. Fantastic. It's a good fun game.
Yes.
Um, do you get back to Botswana much?
Yes, actually, my parents are there, so and my family, rest of the family is there too. So I try to make it there at least every year, at least, or maximum every 2 years. Just to go visit friends, family, or have them come over here, whichever one works better.
Yeah, yeah, no, good. If I was to go to Botswana, what should I be doing? What should I be seeing?
So obviously the safaris are a lot of fun. It's that's a lot of fun, and Botswana is one of the biggest producers of diamonds. So if you ever get a
Wow, yep,
chance,
yep.
the diamond mines are sight to see. I mean, just the perspective, the scale. I mean, if you see the trucks around there in the mines, it'll make you feel like a very, very small person in this world.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
it's fun though. It's one of the biggest, some of the biggest diamond mines in the world, in Botswana, in Orapa and Jwaneng. So if you ever get a chance, those are some things that I would definitely recommend.
Excellent. And food?
Food, well, it's we eat a lot of meat. Uh, we don't, and then pop. I'm guessing that's maize meal, sorghum, and a lot of
Okay.
meat.
Wow.
So
And is it gamey meat or is it just like domestic animals?
a little
And
bit
when
of
I say
both.
when I say domestic, like cows and sheep and
Yeah.
things like this. Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, funny enough, Botswana is also one of the biggest exporters of beef, especially to Europe. So there's a lot of, what you call domestic meat. And,
Yeah.
I like a little bit of game meat once in a while. So,
Nice,
yeah.
nice, nice. Very cool, very cool. So
Yeah.
you came in as an intern to Microsoft. You started in Dynamics in that internship. Have you stayed with Dynamics pretty much the entire way through?
So, actually, no. And then this is one of the another things that I love about Microsoft, the fact that, you can move around within the company, and get all these experiences. So I did start with our ERP business, back when it was called Dynamics AX. And I also got the opportunity after that to go start our marketplace, which is appsource.com right now. So that became a pretty good, a successful story for us. And then after that, the joke we have internally is once you go Dynamics, you can't go back. And after that, I got the opportunity again to be part of our customer data platform journey, and specifically starting with Dynamics 365 Custom Insights. And that's what I've been doing for the last year and a half or so.
Wow. So, yeah, I really want to get into the CDP side of things, but when I was doing some research, I see you've written a book as well.
Yes. So actually, yeah, I forgot about that actually. So that was back when I was in the ERP world. So our last AX 2012, I believe, it was an on-prem release, fully on-prem release. And as we were working on the new cloud release, what has become, our ERP in the cloud application. So yeah, so upgrades back then was a big part of what was hindering customers getting onto the latest and greatest versions. So I did write a book on our ERP product and a lot around the platform upgradability, how to write how to extend our data model so that you can write more upgradable code. So yeah, that was a fun book. It was very popular back then among our partner channel and customers. So thanks
So,
for jogging my memory on that one.
like, I'm always interested in talking to writers and just how much effort goes into writing a book like that. I mean, it's a rock solid book. It's still available, I see, on Amazon.
Yeah.
What were the kind of the commitment that you made to that from a time perspective?
Yeah. So actually, I had the luxury of obviously there's a lot of other the other subject matter experts also involved in that. I don't think I would have been able to write an end-to-end book, but I learned a lot from that experience, which is um, you know I think we always say this, right? That explaining things simply is hard.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And especially ERP and upgrades and how to write upgradable code is not something that is easy to explain in simple forms. But it was hard, actually, to be honest, and it took a lot of time. I think I went through multiple iterations of that with my editor, etc. But it was definitely a fun experience because it's one thing to know something, it's another thing to be able to know enough about it to articulate and explain to somebody that you might not have met, or that is just that you're just communicating through the book. So that was definitely a great experience, and I'm very conscious of that when I write emails, when I write memos, or when I write vision documents internally. But that writing that book, I think, accelerated a lot of that learning for me.
So I see LCS as another lifecycle services was another area you're involved in.
Yep.
Tell us a bit about how that came about and what was your involvement with that.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely making me jog my memory. But this is, so LCS is also another thing that I had the privilege to be part of from what I like to call 0 to 1. I still remember kind of sitting in a room with a bunch of folks just whiteboarding what we can do here. But it was born out of the need of, needing more predictable implementations.
Yeah.
Right? Where
Yeah.
you're able to, once you do it once right, how do you basically make that repeatable? How do you make best practices scale? Right? Not just keep it in a bunch of folks' mind as tribal knowledge. And how do you reduce time to value? Right? So if you look at it, LCS is if I remember correctly, was the first SaaS ALM solution, definitely from our side at Microsoft, and I think in the industry. And today, LCS is used to pretty much all of our ERP implementations. But it was fun because it was driven by what we were hearing in market from our customers and partners. And then it became a lot of fun. The as soon as we got a preview out there, we had a lot of customers that were ready to validate, help give us feedback, and iterate with. But that was my first experience building, an app or a service from the ground up, which is always a little bit extra fun. Right. When you take an existing product and make it bigger or better, that's one thing. But when you start from 0 to 1, where all the way from the naming to what do we call it, what do we make it look like, what does that experience look like, what are the personas for this application, it's very fun. And I think I'm very lucky to have had that opportunity 3 times, one in LCS and in the ERP world, one with AppSource, all the way from when we were talking about as a code name, to Dynamics 365 Custom Insights as well. So I guess I really enjoy that.
That's so cool. So tell us a bit about your thinking behind AppSource back in the day.
So if you really think through marketplaces, the biggest thing that makes or break a marketplace is what I like to call liquidity, right? ISVs will bring their application forward into a marketplace if there are plenty of users that are searching for, or users that can discover the application through that marketplace, right? And Microsoft, across Office 365, Dynamics 365, and Windows, has multi-hundred million end users that are addressable, a potential addressable market for these ISVs, right? So we had a lot of marketplaces across the company. And with AppSource, we were able to basically consolidate and make sure we have one business apps marketplace from Microsoft that brought together ISVs that are building on top of our cloud, right? Be it Dynamics, Azure, Office, or Windows, be able to publish it on AppSource so that end users across all of these ecosystems can discover, try it, and consume it, right? So that is, fundamentally what is different with AppSource. And right now, if you look at it, if you look at the number of applications, if you look at the number of end users that are coming there to try applications, and buy it and adopt it, is just tremendous. And I think the scale that comes with that is pretty amazing.
Would you, if you were having to rebuild AppSource today, and let's say it was whatever it would be called, if you're rebuilding it, because I know it's going through a transition cycle at the moment from a business application perspective, from both a Power Apps and a Dynamics 365 perspective, would you do anything different?
So
and this is with hindsight, right?
yeah.
No,
Yeah, and obviously there's an amazing team that's kind of building that out now, right? So the one thing is, obviously, if you look at it, if you look at the ecosystem, we started off with Dynamics, right? So as we started off, we were basically embedded within Dynamics 365 applications, etc. But once we basically integrated AppSource into the Office ecosystem is where the top just blew out in a big way, right? So many more people coming into the funnel. So think about it, right? If I'm using Outlook, and I'm a business user looking for an expense application, I could basically say get apps and land into AppSource contextual for what I'm looking for, right? So obviously it took us a few months or a year to basically expand AppSource into all of those ecosystems, and that's where truly the power of what we were trying to do came to life, right? But I try to move very fast, so that is something that I wish we had done faster. But in hindsight, in the bigger scheme of things, it got to where we wanted to get to, and there's always things you can improve, do better, and I think that's based on feedback we're hearing from ISVs and end users, and that's just the cycle of life that's continuing to happen. A lot of investment going on there, but super happy with how we were able to bring to AppSource and all the success it's seen in market since.
So tell me about the portfolio that you're responsible for now. So what would a customer see and market, or what would a partner be working with that ultimately flows up into your part of the organization?
So at the highest level, I'm responsible for product around Microsoft's customer data platform, specifically the products and services that accrue to it, which are Dynamics 365 Customer Insights, Dynamics 365 Product Insights, and our data integration set of services. So this includes all the connectors, data flow, etc., that power applications such as our Insights applications, and also the rest of the Power Platform like Power BI, Power Apps, etc.
Wow. So when we're talking about connectors, there's over 300 odd connectors now that your team would have built out?
Correct. So we built a framework for it, and obviously, I've lost count of where we are, but yes, definitely couple of hundred, and just we just keep adding more and more to that every month, every week, etc.
So you've raised an interesting phrase here: customer data platform, CDP, and I've heard it mainly probably in the last 6 to 9 months, more and more this term CDP. Is it purely a reference to the Insight products and those integration points, or is it a broader story?
Yeah. So, CDP as a term, customer data platform, is an industry term, right? It's always had a little bit of a marketing connotation to the use cases were primarily marketing. But our point of view, and I think we definitely are, it's a nascent space category. And we definitely feel where we have a very differentiated view here, which is, we have a vendor agnostic view where you can bring in your customer data from anywhere, in the furtherance of building that 360 view of the customer and understanding of customer with which you can kind of derive, AI-driven insights and then be able to use all of that to deliver exceptional customer experiences, right?
Yeah.
So that is and if you look at the overall story, right, being able to bring in data from anywhere. So think about whichever business application you use, that's okay. You can bring data from there. You can unify it. You can basically segment the top of it. And then I think one of the biggest things is, I never, ever, ever talk about customer insights or a CDP story without the Power Platform. So if I want to take that unified view of the customer, do deeper analysis with Power BI, that's possible because we have out-of-the-box connectors. If I want to build a custom application like a greeter application using that 360 view of the customer, I can do that too because you've got out-of-the-box integration with Power Apps. And same goes with, if I want to do customer journey orchestration, say things like if a customer's churn percentage goes from 10% to 20%, send a notification to an account manager. I can do things like that with Power Automate. So it's just the beauty of everything coming together, and the fact that all of this unified data is built on our planet scale, cloud,
Yeah.
Azure, where you can actually put all of that unified data in your own data lake is what really makes all of this together a very durable differentiator that we're very excited about, and obviously getting a lot of traction in market right now.
So where did this concept within Microsoft have its nexus? Why did Microsoft build, the insight range of products? So, from a product insight perspective, what blows my mind about that is, the amount of data as in the size of the data sets that you're feeding into product insights from, so many different engagement points that a lot of people wouldn't be aware of.
Yep.
But the whole idea of going down this path of customer insights, product insights, and the customer data platform, where did it have its origin? How many years ago? And why did Microsoft now, obviously invested a lot of money in pursuing this?
Yeah. So I think there's two pieces to it, right? One is obviously, there's a lot of these pieces that we have actually built internally to solve everything that I talked about in terms of the need also existed for us as a company, right? As Microsoft. So obviously we had a notion of a customer insights instance or customer 360. We also have this notion of product insights that we use for our own use cases, right? How do I understand the 360 view of a customer that's doing business with Microsoft, and how do I understand how they're interacting with my products and services exist for us as a company, right? So our one of the key things was we found a lot of value in that, and our thing was like, hey, is this something that we can actually make available to every organization out there? That coupled with the fact that we were hearing the need and feedback from our customers that we're asking for these things as well. Right, and that's just where magic happens. So I think it's two things. Like, for example, if you look at our CDP approach in terms of saying, it enables you to understand get a 360 understanding of your customer and how customers are interacting with you across all of these customer journey touch points. That becomes a pretty powerful story, right? And if you look at product insights specifically, internally, the version of that we use for our own products, it gets a ton of usage. I believe it's like 25 million signals a second across 2 billion endpoints. Right? Just to pick on that example. So there's just tons of things that we're learning with what our needs are. We hear a lot from customers, and then our job is just to make sure, how do we make these like easy to consume applications where customers can get a lot of this value quickly with, things that only we uniquely can do. And that's where, magic happens.
Yeah. So give me an overview of Microsoft Customer Insights Dynamics 365 Customer Insights, particularly from the point of view that We've heard this term for years. I mean, heck, I sold CRM back in the day on this 360-degree view of the
Yeah.
customer. And when I started unpacking, customer insights and getting trained on it, what blew me away is that in the Dynamics world, from let's say a purely sales perspective, you would use a merge function. Like if two records were a duplicate, you'd go through and you'd merge and you'd do this cleanup. What blew me away with customer insights is this: you can leave those data sets where they are, but your AI running over it says, hey, this is the same customer. So therefore we'll interrogate the entire data set, but not treat them as separate, record sets. And that seems to be quite a pivot in the way you're looking at data now, and the need for, ongoing triage by people, and how you view customer insights.
Yeah. So spot on. I mean, if you go to, if you look at what has happened, in the world recently, right? There's tons of data coming in from everywhere, right? Both devices, and a lot of organizations are using many different applications to serve their customers, right? So one of the things that happen as a result of it is, as you start using all these different applications, you lose this, for lack of a better term, a 360 view of understanding of that customer. So let's say I call into a contact center, and then I fill out a survey, right? If I fill out a survey saying I'm not very pleased with the experience, and then the next time I call in, I get pitched a new service or an upsell opportunity, I'm probably not feeling, too happy at that point, right? So the fact that there's been like a proliferation of a lot of these high value customer data signals and sources that exist within an organization, there's just a huge opportunity to bring this together without having you to basically, rip and replace or change your core transactional system. So we're not saying you need to change any of those systems of how you do your work, but we're basically allowing you, providing you with a simple way to bring it all together, unified, so you can do something very, very useful with it, which includes, delivering very, very personalized and exceptional customer experiences. So that is the reality, and I think within that reality, for us to enable this, that's where I think there's just so much demand, and any organization with customers, I guess, is fair game for this.
So I feel like a product like this couldn't come too soon from how customers are becoming fatigued, if you like, with things like surveys. Like I often will get, can you fill out you just did this, or you just flew out, on our airlines, or you just were in a hotel. Can you fill out the survey? And I'm like, listen, I paid for the product. I'm not giving you free, feedback, for a couple of reasons. One, I feel it's going to go into a black hole. It's going to go into a bunch of anonymized data sets that have no relevance to me. Why would I spend my time, which is the only thing that, is not renewable, on filling out your survey? And what you're saying here is, well, you could take that survey data and really, tie it back into the customer engagement after that point. I think, customers would be much more inclined to share their insights and their feedback and their things like that if they could tangibly see it having an effect.
Correct. And I think survey is just one example, right? And I think, I want to give one example here, which just blew my mind away in a good way. A couple of weeks ago, so without naming the specific airline, I missed a flight. So I usually go to Europe. I have my pattern of, I land in the morning, I attend meetings in the afternoon, etc. So I missed my flight. And I basically called in the support center from my app for their airline, and it was just amazing. The lady that answered the call was like, "Hey, Mr. Thomas, I noticed you missed your flight." Of course, because I called them after the flight took off, and they said, and we know where you were trying to get to. We've actually rebooked you so that you can actually arrive there within 25 minutes of your initial planned time.
Wow.
So think about that. They have all of that information. I use their mobile app. They know my profiles. They know my patterns of travel, and they were just able to use all of that information within their organization to just give me an amazing customer experience. And guess what? If I have to ever refer an airline to somebody, guess which one I'm mentioning, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think, being able to allow every organization to delight their customers like that is, I think, why we do what we do with customer insights, product insights, and just overall our customer data platform. And I always use that example with the team because it's like, oh wow, if we can enable that for as many organizations as possible with what we build, I think we'll all be in a good place.
So tell me, what are the industries that are adopting now, like that are, you know, that are using your products, as in particularly as insights? Like, is there any particular industries that you're seeing are adopting now, are getting on it, more than just, kicking the tires, so to speak, but actually really engaging with Microsoft and bringing their data sets to the table? Is there any patterns that you're starting to uncover?
Yeah. So, any organization, primarily B2C, right? So whenever the customer is an individual, is where we're seeing the most traction, right? So specifically industry wise, I'll talk about a few public examples we have out there. Tivoli is one example, right? Then they're the second oldest amusement park in Denmark. Millions of visitors every year. All the way to retail banks, right? Airlines, retailers, right? So we're seeing a lot of traction with the retailers,
Right.
pharmacies. So, the way to think about it is, I think this is where I personally have been very pleased in a good way, or surprised in a good way, is we're seeing broad uptake across industries where there is, B2C use cases.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So auto companies, and guess what, right? The more the companies want to become more connected to their end customers, right? And I think that's where, if you look at that huge trend that is happening around the world, we basically enable a lot of those scenarios. But across industry, I couldn't pick one, but I would say, retail banking, just retailers, right, is two of the biggest ones. But we're seeing traction across the board. We have hundreds of paying customers right now in just a few months of being live, and it's just been a roller coaster ride, and it's so much fun because whenever I talk to customers, you learn so much about their business,
Yeah, yeah.
as you try to help guide them, in terms of how they can best use our products. I learned so much about the business, and that personally makes it a lot of fun.
Have you had any kind of, I don't know, surprises, revelations, like aha moments when working in any of these industries? Like, in other words, they're starting to get information that, of course, has been sitting there in their data, but not been revealed. Are you having, I don't know, even customers come back to you and just, with these kind of success stories?
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at it, customers, nobody does a CDP project because it's because they just want to have fun. It's usually, if I had to aggregate it down to three of the top use cases that we see across, it's usually companies that want to reduce churn, right? Which is, hey, either the business model changed or they're getting a lot more competition, etc. They want to reduce churn. Right. So they want to have a deep understanding of the customer so they can detect churn and be able to act on it before it becomes a churned customer. Increase upsell, right? I think I forget who said this, but decreasing churn is the new growth,
Right,
right? So
right.
from that context, being able to upsell to your existing customers, first you need to keep them. How do you upsell to them? And then finally, how do you just increase customer lifetime value? Right. So these three are the scenarios. And to be honest, I think these three kind of span across industry. Right. So think about that for a second. An airline company, a retail banking company, even a retailer, they're dealing with, these are usually their top of mind scenarios that they want to get ahead. And using customer insights and our overall kind of CDP products and services is what enables them to kind of address those and get ahead of it. Right, and stay ahead of it. I think the more and more, just like the example I gave you, imagine if you're able to get customer sat and NPS that high to a point where customers start, they become loyal customers. Forget about just being customers, loyal customers that are able to recommend to other customers. I mean, that is what everybody's going through, and that is just across every industry. So just one example, right? Energy and utility companies. We have a bunch of companies that are using custom insights in the utility space. They have the same problems or they have the same needs, right? Churn might not be as big an issue because in a lot of cases it's a captive audience, but increasing upsell, right? If I provide more solar services, right? How can I get you to use more of my services is always a interesting conversation that these organizations have, right? So that's the piece I think that has not surprised, but something that I've learned as we deal across these industries. And I think the second surprise, I think in my mind, is just how many different systems typical companies have. It's not just one CRM system. There might be different CRM systems from different vendors due to acquisitions, different sort of systems in different geographies. So that has been, at least personally, a big thing that I've learned. But hey, that validates the need for customer insights and what we're doing with our overall CDP approach, even more valuable to organizations to kind of reach their goals.
So that brings me to my next question, which is around data. Where is the data coming from, as in systems wise, and is it age data? Is it like, are we talking 5, 10, 15 plus years, or do you tend to work with take a sample set? What are you seeing as being those diverse data sources that companies are bringing to the mix that are fed ultimately into Dynamics 365 customer insights, and then the insights piece can kick in, or the algos can kick in to give those insights?
Yeah. So, it depends on, let me start with the more complex enterprises, there's typically tens of potential data sources of high value customer data. But one of the things that I really push for is, from a best practice perspective, is, start small, right? Start with a powerful use case that you can do with the minimum set of data sources, because once you have one use case going, the second one is a lot more easier, right? So depending on the size of the company, the number of data sources might vary, but I like to keep it as lean as possible when people are going through the first use case. In terms of types of data, it's at the highest level, it's transactional, observational, behavioral, and I'll give you examples, right? So CRM systems, lead data, survey data, e-commerce data. So if you have feeds of data coming in terms of purchase data, that becomes very useful. Contact center data, etc. So think about all of your transactional workloads or vehicles where you bring in customer data like surveys, etc. All of those are fair game. And the more you bring in, the more complete the view of the customer. So we typically see customers bring in a few, and then they keep adding more and more sources to it, so that the unification and everything, segmentation and the AI and insights can just kick in. So there's always a little bit of it's not a big bang when somebody does a CDP project, but it's usually iterative, and once they start seeing a little bit of value, they want to bring in more data and all that good stuff. And with product insights, what that allows you to bring in is more kind of the observational data. So how are customers interacting with you across website, mobile device, or connected devices becomes an interesting kind of data source to complete, to build an even more comprehensive view of your customer.
So does IoT fit into that mix at all?
Yes. So for the connected devices part, that can, you can basically bring it in, and that accrues to kind of building that overall customer profile and all that good stuff.
So when we talked about all these data sets from, CRM, e-commerce, I take it this is right to FPOS terminals, every transactional piece, if it was running through a store, that data can be imported. Does it have to all be in the cloud, or can it be on-prem based data sets?
Yeah, very good point. Actually, in a lot of industries, a lot of the customer data still sits on-prem. Right. So I think that's where going back to, if you look at our data integration technology and the connector pieces that we use, we have this gateway technology that allows you to connect to on-prem sources. Um, or you can actually replicate those on-prem sources into an online source, and then we take it from there. But being able to reach into the on-prem sources is a big part of, building this complete view, especially in the financial industry. A lot of this data sits on-prem, so that becomes a key part of how we can basically bring in that data.
And so just touching on that from a PII perspective, because, in a lot of these cases, I wouldn't have thought that you want to necessarily anonymize the data as in to who it is, because the value for me as a customer would be to have, the response of my previous survey produce something specific for me so I become more loyal. How is that all handled from a, the PII perspective or data residency? Do you has that all been taken into account? Which, well, I assume it has, but how has it?
Yeah, absolutely right. So I think the key thing here is, this is all of an organization's data, right? So when they bring in that data, they're bringing it into their own instance, right? And once the data is unified, the customer is able to actually store the data within their own tenant in an Azure data lake. So it's the customer's data. They have full control over it in terms of what they do with it. But all of that, of course, is of paramount importance. And I think that's where our model is pretty unique from that perspective, where the customer has full control over it. And it's all of that is happening in their tenant.
Wow. So, I mean, it's an incredible product. I was talking to a colleague of mine, and one of the things they said, it's the best example of where you can, use Power Apps, you can use Power Automate. Power Virtual Agents hadn't come out at the time that we're having the discussion, but it really does allow you to tap into the entire suite of Microsoft's, Power Platform ecosystem as part of this application.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think, I truly, believe the CDP layer, right, where we're building with Dynamics 365 Custom Insights and Product Insights, becomes that foundational layer of a modern kind of enterprise and organization architecture, right? And the fact that, we integrate, you can get started by unifying your data, enriching it, doing segmentation. The fact that you'll never fall off a cliff is a big part of the story, right? So if you want to use a fully SaaS service to do all of this and just use our APIs and our connectors, great. But if you want to do more advanced scenarios, you can always kind of drop down into Azure or use our out-of-the-box Power Platform connectors to basically, like I mentioned, do analytics with Power BI, custom apps with Power Apps, or journey orchestration with Power Automate. But you're right, though, it really brings that entire Microsoft story together, and to solve probably one of any organization's most strategic problem, which is how do we deliver exceptional customer experiences and keep growing the business.
Yeah, so true. Just as we start to wrap up, tell me, what is the ISV story, or is there an ISV story yet for the Insights range of products?
Yeah. So this is actually an active area that we're working on, right? Especially given my AppSource experience, it's very close to my to my heart. If you look at customer insights, etc., it's a very, it's a foundation to many things above, right? So one of the things that we're looking at is we have a lot of SIs doing this already, where they're actually going to organizations saying, "Hey, I will actually help you achieve banking 360." okay, or retail 360. What that means is they basically take customer insights and product insights, and they basically have custom connectors that are very applicable in that industry. Right, so Microsoft
Right,
will never
right.
build all of those connectors, but we have a rich framework on top of which ISVs can build that, or SIs can build that. On top of that, you can basically have out-of-the-box segments, right? Which segment makes sense in which industry? A lot of ISVs have that subject matter expertise, and then the Power Platform collateral, right? So if I'm a banking solution, I can have a Power App tailored for the banking industry. I can have a Power BI report tailored for what might be most applicable in a banking industry, and if I'm able to package all of this, right, and publish this on something like AppSource, where on AppSource actually, where I can actually search for banking 360 or retail customer insights. I'm able to see all of that finished IP on top of our platform. I think that is where we want to go with our ISV story, and something that we're thinking through, and listening to feedback on from our customers, and of course the ecosystem as well.
Yeah, fantastic. What excites you about the Wave 1 announcements?
Oh, it's hard to pick anyone, but I think I think I'm personally obviously very pumped about what we're doing in the insight space, and obviously the customer data platform. But I mean, just the true strength of everything that we're doing is a better together story across the Dynamics apps, across the insights applications, and obviously the Power Platform, right? And I think we're doing a lot of work between these three as well to make the better together story really pop. So it's hard to pick a favorite, but I mean, hopefully you're feeling this as well. But the momentum is just amazing, and we're having a lot of fun building all of this.
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
It is phenomenal. 2020 is going to be an amazing year, and I think because so much of the groundwork was done in 2019,
Yeah.
So yeah, very exciting. Resources. If people want to go out, are there specific forums, training material available for the community to access and start kind of skilling up around the product?
Yeah, so obviously, you can go to our website. So Dynamics 365 Customer Insights. It's a G, it's been in market for a few months. We have a lot of resources there in terms of ebooks, videos, community. And another thing that we are actually doing similar to some of the Power Platform products is, we have this thing called Customer Insights in a Day
Yep.
workshops around the world. So we started as an experiment in Redmond, but it caught on fire. So right now there's tens of these happening around the world every month. So if there's definitely an opportunity for any one of you to attend that, I would definitely take that up. So it's just there's just so many resources out there. The community is actually starting to build a lot of content around custom insights, and as always, if there's any questions that I can help with, I'm happy to engage directly as well, or at least point you in the same right direction and all that good stuff.
Excellent. Before I go to some quick fire questions about life in general, some deep and meaningful questions, is there anything you want to add just before we wrap?
No, I think, definitely thanks for the opportunity, and having been in Dynamics and Microsoft for a while, I mean, I feel like we're just getting started. So if there's any feedback, etc., or anything that I can help with, sthomas@microsoft.com, would love to connect.
I love it. I love it. So, okay, are you ready for some quick fire questions?
Sure.
Okay, what's your best scar story?
Scar story.
Yeah. Bitten by a lion, maybe?
Actually, we do have a reserve nearby where they had a couple of lion cubs. I didn't get scratched, but I almost came close to getting scratched and scarred. But no, I don't have any cool scar stories. Sorry.
If you could arm wrestle a historical figure, who would you choose and why?
Nelson Mandela.
Wow, good.
I had I remember in 1995, I got the opportunity to briefly meet Nelson Mandela, and I think he was just a fun person. He was just joking around, and I'm like, man, this guy would be a fun guy to hang out with. So,
That is so cool.
So yep.
I love it. I love it. What's your most used emoji?
That's a good. Thumbs up. I use the thumbs up a lot.
Nice. Mine's often the laughing face with tears coming out the eyes,
So I've never, sometimes I misunderstand that for crying.
Yeah.
But I realize that means two very different things.
Yeah, totally. There's actually a Microsoft guy, Chris Huntingford, and he says some stuff, and it makes me laugh. What stereotype do you completely live up to?
Stereotype, interesting. I wear glasses and I read a lot. I guess I don't know if that is a stereotype, but whenever I get some chance, I love reading 10K statements of public companies. It's just a weird hobby I have, but I read a lot. Weird. So whenever I get a few minutes or I'm on a flight, I take printouts of 10Ks and read it.
Wow, I hope you're investing in those businesses so you're getting a payoff. Would you rather be rich or famous?
Famous, but for the right reasons. I think, being able to, one of the things is there's a lot of people that took a chance on me so that, that got me to the place where I am. So if I do become famous, I want to become famous for being able to do that for other people.
I love it.
Everything else is just temporary.
Oh, very good. Last question for you. What's the first music you ever purchased?
So this was in Botswana. We had a neighbor who used to work at the American consulate, and she was leaving. So she told me I can have anything in her house, especially her old records. And I got this record of Prince.
Yep.
I think this was way back. So that was my first record, my first experience with English music and everything all in one.
That is awesome. Great artist. Who do you recommend as a guest for this podcast in the future?
I'm guessing, you've probably, I miss who else you've talked to on this. Have you talked to our friends in the Power Platform, Charles?
Yep.
Stephen?
Yep.
Ryan Cunningham?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
I even had, as in Hayden Stafford on a couple of weeks ago. And, I've even had James Phillips on the show. So
nice. Actually, one of our newest GMs in the org, Ray Smith.
Awesome. This sounds good.
Yes. So he actually runs our sales application. I have a lot of fun conversations with him. I think he would be.
Are you talking about Dynamics 365 Sales?
Yes, Dynamics 365 Sales.
Finally, it has an owner that's going to do something amazing with it by the sounds.
Yes, so
I'd love to talk with him.
Conversations with him. Yeah, happy to connect you if you can drop me an email. Yep.
Excellent. If Satish, if people want to catch up with you, are you going to be at any conferences in the near future? And are you on Twitter? Or is there ways they can see what you're producing online?
Yes, so I am on Twitter at Satish Thomas. Simple enough. And yes, I'm planning to be at MBAS. I'm usually at the UGs and all that good stuff. So that is one of my favorite parts of the jobs, getting feedback, getting to see the good, the bad, all that feedback from customers. So MBAS, all that good stuff. But on Twitter, LinkedIn, just drop me a message. I'm happy to engage and help as I can.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you have not left a rating and feedback on iTunes, please, can you just go to nz365guy.com/iTunes. It'll take you to that site on Apple, and it'll allow you to give me a rating. I just need to get a few more feedbacks, positive ratings, that type of thing, for my ratings to actually show up. So I'd appreciate it if you've enjoyed the show, or any of my shows. I'd appreciate if you did that. Remember, full show notes can be found at nz365guy.com/170. Until you next time, have a great week.